Here comes Spyder's CFL red zone rule. Got it in the end. You know what? I should have known better. 27 minutes go by so fast because I had that sort of introduction. So that was the reason that I didn't have enough time. What I did was I sent to Mr. Murray my Spyder CFL red zone rule presentation that's being presented at the CFL Innovation Rules Committee for now 2022. I sent him the full presentation. I also went over I sort of highlighted and gave him some selling features and some of the contents in my presentation, because I know he doesn't know about my CFL red zone rule. I also told him about two young generation fans that I met, that's Eskimo fans, that I met at the 107th Grey Cup in Calgary, at a pub. And where I met them and I gave them my brochures on my Spyder CFL red zone rule, and I went over it with them, and they were blown away and really just fascinated by my CFL red zone rule. Just like all the 500 plus I've surveyed, and they, like my last session prior to would have been last week, one of my sessions last week, when I said, they told me, Spyder, how are you going to get it out there? How are you going to get it out there? So, and they are right. And I mentioned that to Mr. Murray, and I said, you got to start listening to the fans, and you got to go after, because he was talking in his press media session that their fan demographic's brutal, and it's true. So the CFL has to go after the mass market younger generation sports fan. That's the NFL, who watches the NFL, who watches the NBA, the Raptors, who watches the Jays in Major League Baseball and the World Series, and watches MLS soccer. Truly, they do, but they don't watch the CFL. They don't watch the CFL, and they need to tap into that market. So my Spyder CFL red zone rule will really gravitate them and it'll really grab them, and like it did when I surveyed them, because I surveyed a lot of them in the 500 I surveyed, and it really grabbed them. I had even people take pictures of my hat. But I noticed my Spyder CFL red zone rule Facebook page today. I went in on, it's been hacked, and I noticed Rod Peterson's stuff up on it, and like it's not good. So somebody got in there and hacked it, and I bet it's them, because they're jokers. I don't even watch him anymore. He's too egotistical for me. I'm sorry. He's too pompous. I'm sorry. I don't like to run down people, but he's one of them. Like, there are others like him. I could mention their names too, but I'm mentioning him because it's all his stuff is in there, and he's eliminating my whole Spyder CFL red zone rule page. He's taken it basically down, and with all his stuff on there, the video. So I'm going to have to consult my son, and hopefully get it rectified and back up. Sorry, people. So just give us some time on that, and we'll get it back up, hopefully, and see what the heck happened. This is just terrible, what's going on. I'm telling you, there's so many bullies and jokers out there, and he's a joker. The way he, no wonder they fired him from doing the sketch on Rough Rider games, radio games. No wonder they fired him, because he's like, I could tell you more, but I won't. He wouldn't give my CFL red zone rule the time of day. He's so conceited. The guy that Dave, I think Taylor, the guy that replaced him, he used to be in the TSN, and he's a great guy. He wished me luck with my CFL red zone rule. He did. I sent him my presentation. He wished me luck, and he's a good guy. And he's a stats guy, so he liked my stunning numbers and my stats and that 18% guarantee. I'm going to contact him too. I'm going to try to get on his show, and on Jamie Nine's show too, because Jamie Nine is really interested in my Spyder CFL red zone rule. And actually, I was on his show, and he allowed me to talk about my CFL red zone when he talked about it himself. And by the way, let me tell you something. You can maybe complain about Mr. Johnson. When Mr. Johnson was head of officiating, but he had a lot of problems on his hand, just like the CFL has now with their referees. So he had a tough job. But then he became VP, senior VP of football operations. So he was next in line. He could have been the commissioner, and I think that's why he was forced out. But he was quite knowledgeable, and like when he was there, and Mark Cohen, and or just after Mark Cohen, I think he might have stepped in. Yeah, he was there. I think when Mark Cohen was there, and Mr. McDonald too, who was VP football operations. And Mark Cohen showed interest when I had my CFL Red Zone rule called Inside the Red Zone rule. Okay, and then I worked and refined it, and worked really hard for almost like 5 years to refine it to come up with the final finished product, and added the optional provision part too, and changed it to Spyder CFL Red Zone rule, which I think is more tasteful. It's got a better sound to it. It's more catchy and eye-catchy too, the logo and everything. So, and by the way, everybody loves my logo. All the 500 plus I surveyed, they all love my logo. And Steve Armitage was the one that changed it from Spyder's proposed new CFL Red Zone rule, like on the monitor there with Mitchell and Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule hat turned around there, proposed Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule. And then Steve Armitage said, no, just call it Spyder's CFL Red Zone rule. So that's what I did. I did a list of Steve Armitage. He's a great guy. And you imagine having a legend like that, an icon, and fascinated by my CFL Red Zone rule and really sold on it. And he made the smartest suggestion. An icon, a legend like that, as prominent sports as Steve Armitage, and endorsing my CFL Red Zone rule. I think that's when you have something really big. And that's what I said to Mr. Murray here. But he said, and I had this in my presentation too, that Steve Armitage said that the CFL has to realize that they're selling entertainment and excitement. And he said that's exactly what my CFL Red Zone rule will do. Unquestionably, that's what we'll do, he said. And it would make our CFL 3-down game a more attractive, more appealing, and a lot more entertaining, a lot more exciting brand of CFL 3-down football to watch and be part of. And that's bottom line, and it will. And that 18 guarantee percent, and by the way, the average percentage of touchdowns went from 49.6 when it was the 2 games left. I said it was going to go up. I thought around 50, went to 51 overall. But there was some CFL teams that believe or one like even below 40%, I believe, at 39% or something, and then some in the 40s. And I have to check it, but it ended up being 51. The average overall amongst 9 CFL teams, that's touchdowns scored in the red zone. So that's down from 2017 to 2018 by almost 4 points. And since 2019, when they had 2019 when they had the one-off, when they had 3 CFL teams with only 12 wins, that's why it went up. It wasn't because the teams are so poor. The defense was so poor, and the teams were so poor. It was so easy to score touchdowns, and they had a surge actually from 54.8 to it went up like, I'm trying to remember now exactly. It went up 3.5 points, something like that. Yeah, I think it went up that, or a little less. Went up 3 points. But now it's down to 51. So if you take that, like it's down like over 7. 7.5 points. It's down. So it's really down. So and that bodes well for my CFL Red Zone rule, because like Steve Armitage says, it's even more reason why to adopt it. I mean, that is piss poor in the red zone. But it's in 10 years before I had those numbers, when they started putting the stats on the percentages of touchdowns scored in the red zone, the CFL, and when they had a statistician do that. Before that, I had stats that were like 10 years before that. 2017, 2018, the ones I had, which was 54.8, 54.7. They were between 50 and 55, so they never ever went over 55. So that was a one-off, really, when it went over a couple points, 2 or 3. Well, actually, no, 2.5 points, whatever, from that 55. But from the 54.8, around 3, about 3 points. Uh, and by the way, that's as high it's ever going to go, and that one-off probably will never happen again, unless like what's happening now, the teams are that weak. There were 2 that were really weak, but there were 3 with 12 wins prior to that, 2019. So if they continue, yeah. But what's happening is the quality of players are going down so bad in the Canadian content with the Canadian ratio that and attracting less American players, because now they have to. It's 10 Canadian starters, and half a CFL team need to be made up of Canadian players. The product's being diluted and diluted more and more, and you could see the worst ever this year on the field in the CFL. Worst product ever. So, I mean, my CFL red zone rule is needed like you wouldn't believe in the red zone. And, by the way, it'll guarantee that at the 54 point, if they go back to 54.8, it will guarantee an 18% guarantee of touchdowns scored in the red zone, which amounts to 50 more touchdowns in the red zone in the CFL, equaling 200 more points in the CFL. That's huge. You know, I haven't worked at 51%, but I know even at that percentage, it would be quite high. It'd be between 15 and 17%. I'd have to work it out, but it'd be at least 15, 16%. I'll tell you. Like, I have to work out the percentage, some math, and I'm going to do that actually. But of more touchdowns scored in the red zone, and that would be huge for the CFL, and a huge seller feature to sell CFL 3-down football. And by the way, it's basically 2-down football in the CFL. And a 110-yard field, 65 yards, 20-yard end zone. You do the math, by the way, and that's why it makes me so upset when you see little tiny plays, 4-yard, 6-yard passing plays, side yard passes for like 2 or 3 yards. When the field is 65, 110, and 20 yards end zones, if you do the math, it's 48% larger than an NFL field. Just look at an NFL field. Looks like outdoor arena football. I'm not kidding. It's not knocking. It does. I think ideally, like my son agrees with me, and even with my red zone rule, Spyder CFL red zone rule, it may be a little better too, but it still would be great with the 20, maybe even more to score more touchdowns. So on 3rd down if needed, with my Spyder CFL red zone. But I think the ideal field in the CFL would be 15 yards in the end zones, okay, 110 yards still, and maybe 60 yards wide. I think that would be the perfect ideal field. But then you see the NFL try to copy it. But that would be, I think, the perfect. If I had designed it myself, and I think if people were to weigh the pros and cons and put that out on a survey, I think they would like to see what I'm saying. 60, 110, 60 wide, 15-yard end zones, okay? But getting back to my Spyder CFL red zone rule, that was a 6th one and the big one, because when's the last time the CFL come up with a big rule? Launched a big rule, a big announcement on a big rule in the CFL. More flags that are thrown on, challenge flags thrown all over the field. Like that's not a rule that's going to make our CFL 3-down game, the entertainment, the excitement of our game better. The drama in the red zone with my CFL red zone rule, and the excitement would be off the wall. Not only offensively, but also not only offensively, but defensively as well in the red zone. Because, like I said before, defensively, I mean, if a CFL team playing with my CFL red zone rule, which is an enforcement rule, if needed, on 3rd down, to go for a touchdown, if a CFL team on defense stops them on 3rd down, they prevent a touchdown from being scored, which is a huge stop. That would be the biggest stop, really in the CFL right now. I mean, this would be the biggest rule also. I mean, when's the last time they brought in a rule that had this magnitude, that could eliminate the 2 biggest turnoffs and 2 biggest killers of our CFL 3-down game in the red zone? And because in the red zone it's magnified, and that's 2 down, 2nd down stops, and that's non-eventful, which they are, easy chip shot field goals that are boring, predictable, okay? Okay, in the red zone or slightly outside, depending on where the second down stop was made in the red zone. Both completely, remarkably gone. Can you imagine that in the CFL? And 50 more touchdowns scored in the red zone because my CFL red zone rule. But getting back defensively, okay, so they stop them on third down, preventing a touchdown scored, which is a huge defensive play. And then if they push him outside on third down, with my Spyder CFL and red zone enforcement rule, if the third down's needed, okay, they don't get my Spyder CFL red zone rule kick. And the reason, like I said, there's my Spyder CFL red zone rule kick is because with a 2-down football game, basically, on a 110-yard field, to march downfield, play 2-down football to get first downs, and get in the red zone, and go for it in third down, which they can now, but when my rule would be enforced, it would be a CFL enforcement rule, my CFL red zone rule. They need to come up with some points, and like I said, they get rewarded because they're forced to play 3-down football if they need the third down to score a touchdown in the red zone. So if they maintain possession of the ball and they're not pushed outside the red zone on third down, and they don't score a touchdown, they get my Spyder CFL red zone rule kick from the 35, and you add 7 yards, that would be from the 42. That would be a very challenging kick. And it would add more drama. But the drama in the red zone, my CFL red zone rule, would be just phenomenal and super exciting. Because, think about it. At a CFL game, and by the way, every CFL game, my CFL red zone rule is there, just staring the CFL right in the eye, just waiting to be adopted. Because CFL teams, okay, that are in the red zone and are stopped in second down, less than the 1 yard line, they don't go for it. Even on the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right up to the 20, 10-yard line, 15, 20, they kick an easy chip shot field goal. They do. And fans boo. You imagine 2-down football, playing 2-down football, kicking an easy chip shot field goal in the red zone. They don't want to see that. They boo. They boo. Now my Spyder CFL red zone rule, they don't have to boo anymore. They'll be cheering. Do you hear what I'm saying? With my Spyder CFL red zone rule, CFL fans, you hear me? You won't be booing anymore in the red zone when you see another boring second down stop and a predictable, non-eventful, which is distasteful, unappealing, easy chip shot field goals for 3 points or slightly outside the red zone for 3 points when they could have went for it and scored a touchdown. But now they will have to go for it with my Spyder CFL red zone rule if they need the third down to score a touchdown and play exciting 3-down football in the red zone to score a touchdown, okay, in the red zone. So the excitement would be unbelievable. So you go from booing in the red zone when stopped in second down, where they're going to kick another boring, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goal, to cheering, loud cheering. Not only offensively, offensively they'll be quiet, but defensively, like I said, the drama, the crowd would be just, you wouldn't better hear. They'd try to get a time count violation. There's so many features in my CFL red zone rule, it's unbelievable. And even when they get near the 20-yard line on second down, okay, if stopped, they're going to go for it in third down to try to get in the red zone. Because of my CFL red zone rule. Because they know they're going to be playing playing CFL 3-down football in the red zone to score a touchdown, and they know if they maintain possession of the ball and don't, if the third down's needed and don't score a touchdown, they get my Spyder CFL red zone rule kick. And the thing about also the tags that they can put, like the CFL, the money the owners and the CFL and TSN can make too, if they divide the pie, they can have a sponsorship tag, put my Spyder CFL red zone rule logo, okay, on with my field diagram. See that too? That would be unbelievable. That wouldn't be graphic. They can actually put that on the field. The CFL loved my Spyder CFL red zone rule field diagram. They loved it, and they love the red lines, okay, on both sides of the white line, and the 20-yard white lines outlined in red, the 20, number 20, and both red zones. They love that, and they don't have to do a fake graphic for that, but they can put a sponsorship graphic over top, Spyder CFL red zone rule, Scotiabank, Spyder CFL red zone rule kick, same thing, Shoppers Drug Mart, whatever. Subaru, whatever. So seriously, I mean, they can make a lot of money, and on merchandise, they would make a tremendous amount of money. And my Spyder CFL Red Zone roll, with my hat, with hats, sweaters, like everything. Like they could make a lot. T-shirts, they could make a lot of money in merchandise. My Spyder CFL Red Zone roll. And I can tell you right now, just by my survey, and that's a good indication that if they could tap into the mass market, younger generation sports fan on my CFL Red Zone roll, which I know they would love. That's what those Edmonton younger generation sports fans told me at the 107th Grade Cup in Calgary. It's early morning in Halifax, okay? This morning, November 26th, and I have some tongue twisters. I just brushed my teeth, and it's early, but I wanted to do this session. But, you know, just by what they said to me, how do you get it out there? And that's what I got to do. So if you can help to get my Spyder CFL Red Zone roll out there, help me with it. Drop me a line and say, give me a suggestion. That what you know, Steve Armand says maybe I could do a podcast, but he knows about my videos, but he made me say like a real Spyder CFL Red Zone roll podcast. Okay. So maybe I could check in with that, my son, but I got to get my Spyder CFL Red Zone Facebook page back up. I mean, that is, I just can't believe that was done to me. But that's typical of and there's bullies out there online too, and you know, it's unbelievable what's going on in this world we're living in today. But anyway, getting back to my rule and getting back to the 6, what I call necessary needed changes the CFL needs to make. The Canadian ratio, okay. The one year contracts got to go. They got to go. But you know, the Canadian Players Association, you know, they're going to be pushing for money, guaranteed contracts. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get it because they're the ones that push for this. The Canadian Players and the Canadian Players Association, they're the ones that push for this 1 year contracts. They are. They are. I mean, the Canadian Players Association, the owners need to lock them out. Seriously. The one thing I liked about Mark Cohn, he was for the owners and for the fans. Okay? You know what? People go to games for the brand. Calgary Stampeders, Saskatchewan Roughriders, okay, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Ottawa Redblacks. They don't go there for the names on the sweater. They go for the brand. So players, you've been pushing the CFL around long enough with the Canadian Players Association made up of mostly Canadian players and careful Canadian linemen, and your Canadian ratio, shoving it down their throat, and the fans, and look what you've done to our league. It's time that CFL fans push back and the CFL owners push back and put you in your place and lock you out and abolish your Canadian Players Association. Unless you, okay, the Canadian ratio the Canadian ratio has to be demolished completely to allow the best available players to start in the CFL. And yes, I want to see the best Canadian players play in the CFL, but only if they want to play in the CFL, not the NFL, and only if they make a CFL team on merit and actually make a roster spot and make a starting spot. Not be just given the roster spot because of the Canadian ratio, or a starting spot, Canadian ratio, starting spot because of the Canadian ratio, because of the passport too, because of where they're from. That's ridiculous. I mentioned that in my last session. That has to change. So that's why the Canadian ratio has to go. That's old school. It doesn't work in professional sports leagues today. Just doesn't. Imagine if the NFL and the NHL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and MLS soccer, they had a ridiculous handcuffing, okay, ratio rule, okay. They'd have all empty seats too. Their stadiums would be empty. They would be in big trouble. They would be in big trouble. That's why they don't have it. That's why they don't have it. They have it because they're the knowledgeable mass market young generation or adult sports fan. They want to see the best available players starting and playing in a professional sports league and at every position for entire game. That's what they want, and that's what the CFL aren't delivering, and that's what they need to deliver. They, like my son says, they need to change. And the 1 year contract's got to be gone. They got to go to 2 or 3. They should go to 3 year contract. And it's like Mark Cohn said, if a player doesn't want to sign a 2 year contract to commit to the CFL, we'll get a player that does. And I guarantee you the CFL can. It's all about getting more money, jumping. Imagine 35 players, like 30 to 35 players, every team free agents every year, jumping the teams or jumping the NFL, okay? They get more money, whatever. Like, there's no continuity. You know, like, you can't have a professional sports league like that. And by the way, in the NHL, they have a 4-year contract before you become a free agent. And in other professional sports leagues, it's even higher than that. I think someone said there's 7 years. CFL, man, you're playing desperate. You're playing desperate. So anyway, the flags too. The flags are just brutal. The flags all the flags being thrown in the CFL on the field is unbelievable. And the referees got to put their, like in the NFL, put their flags in their pocket, and it should be averaging no more than 8. That would be the highest. That's a total for both teams, a game like the NFL. They have to stop these borderline calls, all these little minor holding calls or other foolish calls that they call, and then little minor holding calls when the return guy's way down the field scoring a touchdown that's way back in the field. They got to stop that. It's got to stop. And the branding, like they got to do a much better job in branding their product and selling their product. Like the NFL does. They got to get it talked about in their own country. They got to get on CTV, the Grey Cup, and a CFL game of the week, okay? Or 2 games in CFL during the week, CTV during the week, and they got to get on radio, and they got to get all, and especially TSN and all the sports media, hyping it up, building it up, talking it up. And what a way to do it, my Spyder CFL Reds Arm Bowl. So let's hope that my Spyder CFL Reds Arm Bowl, which would be gigantic because it's a natural and a winner. And it's tailor-made for CFL 3-down football. And it would, and the buzz it would create around CFL 3-down football, it would be incredible. And at a CFL game live and on TV in the Red Zone, the excitement in the Red Zone would be unbelievable. My Spyder CFL Red Zone Bowl. Signing off, take care.